I might be looking a little grungy, not only because I don't have a laundry machine and haven't been able to do laundry since the quarantine started, but also because today we're jumping into grunge right at peak grunge. 1994, when big bands like Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Stone Temple Pilots were all blowing up onto the scene. This band jumped right on that wave. This is Sponge's debut album called Rotting Piñata, released by Sony Music Entertainment in 1994. Looking back, it's kind of funny how grunge music became popular and commercially viable at some point. As much as there's a lot of that, I see this providing some new and unique ideas that were used to evolve the genre past the point where it basically ended up dying out just a year or two right after this. This album shows off one of his more obvious inspirations right out of the get-go with an intro and an outro that's ripped basically right out of a Nirvana song. It's called Penny Wheels. It's a radical, turbulent grunge anthem that, while I said ripped off, it's not totally egregious. It's just that clear, acoustic, echoey, lo-fi intro and outro that is just so associated in my mind with Nirvana that it gives me an almost nostalgic feeling right at the start of this one. It really does provide a great intro to this song that quickly opens up to this full rock, grandiose scale, complemented by the guttural vocals of Vinnie Dombrowski. Dombrowski? I'm not sure. He's the last remaining member of Sponge to this day, after 8 albums. It moves on to a song that feels the most progressive on this album, and might be the reason why I like it the most. This is the title track, Rotting Piñata. I call it progressive as to mean it feels like a Blink-182 song that is a band that didn't exist at the time, smashed into a Stone Temple Pilots song. Really doing a good job of blending those new and older ideas that ends up creating this super fun, high-tempo punk rock song that just thrashes start to finish. Giants is a slower, rougher, longer track that talks about a really sad story of being complacent in a unfaithful relationship. It's real sad with some more Pearl Jam vibes here and maybe even a little bit of pre-Nickelback. They get even heavier, deeper, darker with the next 2 tracks, Nina Menasha and Miles. Nina Menasha is the longest on the track list, and it's Sponge's anthem for the beaten and the broken. A little bit of maybe My Chemical Romance vibes or Good Charlotte. Definitely not directly taken from there, but there's just that same sort of feeling alongside this. The song transports this feeling of being mistreated and sort of thrown away, but the steady backbeat manages to instill this sense of hope for the future. Dog found her toy. Miles is a more Nirvana-esque track that feels like a modern western. It's got Christian allegory and just generally a dusty feel to it. I feel like this one had a higher potential bar than it reached, with the chorus just not quite having enough energy to do it for me. Not to say it's not emotional and pretty powerful, it's just not quite dynamic enough to grab me and take me along for the ride it wants to. Another track I might deem progressive is the track Plowed. The reason I say that is as soon as this one starts to play, I jump to 1997 with Great Big Sea's album Play, I think. One of the best-selling albums of the 90s out of Canada. It feels like 2 ends of a magnet that shouldn't be able to touch together here, because these bands are almost polar opposites of each other in terms of sound and style and delivery. But that underlying feeling is right there, making me feel like I'm in a East Coast bar or something. The specific song it reminds me of is When I'm Up, but instead of being a jaunty, celebratory, Irish-inspired rock slapper, this is another piece of heavy-hitting, disenfranchised grunge that really had quite an impact at the time of its release, becoming one of Sponge's greatest hits. They take the foot off the gas, but tie a cinder block around their ankle and plunge into this anthem for the depressed on the track Drowning. A grunge ballad that burns and wails away on the back of this fantastically powerful vocal performance. Of the more moderately paced tracks, this is definitely my favorite. The album takes a much needed break with the band trying their hands at a more pop rock style of song. Molly is one of the most commercialized attempts on the album, and it did pay off with this song charting across the US. Personally, I found it a bit generic and drawn out, but I've probably just been beaten down by all the pop music since that point that I really could just care less about this one. Unfortunately for the fans of Molly, and thankfully for me, they moved right back to that classic tried and true grunge sound that I think their true fans really resonate with. This is a slower and appropriately named song, Fields, not only for the lyrical content, but the fact that it's just wide open feeling. The far off, almost echoey vocals are mixed in a way that they're sort of pulled through the instrumentation, but you can still hear it pretty clearly. Seeing as grunge had become pretty popular at the time, I'd expect people to know how to master and mix it at this point. I'm still just constantly impressed by how well they manage the balance of the vocals and the instrumentation on this entire piece as a whole. Closing out the track list, Rainin' is a send-off of all things grunge. It sort of covers the whole spectrum with slower, almost spoken word vocals over some understated instrumentals to great big shouted vocals over a big grimy rockin' band. A good send-off if you're not willing to wait the 3 minutes after this track for the little bonus track Candy Corn. I think they put it so far away from the end of this album because it's so far away from the album in tone and in style. It's a light and airy, reverby indie daydream. It conveys a feeling of sailing through low clouds of sound. It's one of those songs that I seem to need after that bit of a sad boy slog of an album. I mean, I know depression and grunge kind of went hand in hand, but it's a bit of a bummer of an album, to be honest. As much as it does feel a bit exploitative of the genre regarding its time of release and obvious influences, Sponge does manage to provide some new ideas and, for the most part, stay pretty pure to the heart of grunge, and even has a few standout singles. While it only has 10.5 tracks, it does tend to drag off into the background a little bit near the end. However, a solid grunge album, just maybe not one you can play over and over again. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Hope you liked it. Hope you can subscribe and come back for some more. Hopefully I don't run out of CDs before the thrift shops open again. Have a great day, guys. Take good care. Like a rotting piñata, rotting piñata.
Check out the links in the description to go listen right now!